What percentage of the people you're emailing are opening your emails? If you're not monitoring that, then you're more likely than ever to be seeing the emails filtered in the future.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Selling Online Courses. We're here to share winning strategies and secret hacks from top performers in the online course industry. My name's John Ainsworth and today's guest is Adrian Savage. Adrian, Email Savvy Savage, is a dad, a geek, an entrepreneur and co-founder of Email Smart. He is the best person that I know of about email deliverability. Recently, I was in a WhatsApp group and everybody was asking around who's the person to go to around email deliverability. And I said, you need to talk to Adrian. And someone said, no. The person to talk to, the people to talk to is Email Smart. And I was like, okay, that's exactly the same people that we're talking about there. He's like the absolute go-to guy here. He's helped thousands of businesses get their emails seen so they make more sales. He's helped hundreds of people like Frank Kern, Stu McLaren, Neil Patel, Ryan Levesque, Shark Group, Glazer Kennedy, all to improve their email performance. He's also the creator of the unique Email Smart software, which we'll come back to later. It quickly and simply shows how well your emails are performing and how you can get even more people to see and open your emails. So today we're going to be talking about how to make sure your emails get through to your subscribers' inboxes, email deliverability, what you can do, what's new in 2024, especially around authentication, which is a new thing. It's not a new thing. It's a thing that it absolutely must do now. There's some new stuff that's come in around it, and we're going to make sure that you know exactly what you need to be doing so that your emails are getting delivered. Now, before we dig into today's interview, I want to remind you of how much your support means to us. We're here to make sure that your podcast experience is as good as possible, and you can help us with just a quick favor by taking a moment to rate and review our podcast. You're going to give us priceless feedback that's going to help shape future episodes, and you're going to help us to rank better as well, make sure more people see the podcast. So if this show has helped you to make money, then please leave us a review and tell us about that. I've had that feedback from a bunch of different people. Has it helped you grow your business or improve your courses? If it has, please share it in the reviews. Go to ratethispodcast.com/online courses. That's ratethispodcast.com/online courses and leave us a review. So, Adrian, welcome to the show, man. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here.
So let's start out kind of broad. Why do people's emails sometimes end up in their client's spam folder?
It's a really tough question to answer, and it is probably one of the ones that I get asked the most frequently. And I'll be completely honest, even as an alleged email deliverability expert, I have to confess that sometimes the marketing emails that I send out still go to the spam folder. And the reason for that, unfortunately, is that the major mailbox providers, so we've got Google, they normally have a stranglehold of more than 50% of a typical email list. So there's Google, there's Yahoo, there's Microsoft. Between the three of them, 75, 80, even 90% of your list. They set some very specific rules. And also, I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that they hate marketers, but they do want to make it very difficult for people to get their marketing emails through because they're very keen to give their subscribers, their users, who aren't their customers, by the way, because people don't typically pay for Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo Mail, but they want to give those people the best possible experience because if they don't, those people are going to move on. And if they don't give a good experience to their users, they can't make money out of displaying adverts because that is how Google, Yahoo and Microsoft make their money. If you're using Gmail, then you're not paying for it. So that means that you're the product. So every time you open an email, Google can display an advert to you, and they can only display adverts for the emails that get opened. So what that means is it's a constant, almost a pitched battle between the marketers and the Googles and Microsofts and Yahoos of this world, because we need to get our emails seen so we can get our message across, and Yahoo don't want to, and Google don't want to upset the people that are reading the emails, and they try and hide all the stuff they don't want to see and show them all the stuff they do want to see. And this means that Google and co have invested millions, if not billions, in AI. Long before AI was a thing in the last few years, Google came along with something called TensorFlow. And the idea is it's meant to try and work out, is this a legitimate email or is it not? And it will look at all kinds of things. And I often relate this to something like search engine optimization, where we're trying to have to second guess what those rules are. There's nothing published. I mean, these days, Google and Yahoo have actually broken their silence a little bit, and they've published some bulk sender guidelines, which is maybe about a page long. So that gives us a starting point. But there's so many nuances beneath that. And what we're seeing really is that if someone hasn't opened your emails before and you send them a new email, you are probably going to get routed to spam. And there's very little that you can do about that, which is why we have to train our audience to look for the emails when they sign up for our email list, as an example, or when they buy one of our courses. Because as a course creator, there's nothing worse than someone paying you some money for a course. You send them the email saying, here's what you've paid for. It doesn't land in their inbox, and suddenly you've got a refund on your hands because they're complaining and saying you've let them down. So even further than the ability to sell, getting that first email through when someone buys from you is vital. And we can't guarantee it, unfortunately. So we have to make sure that when you sell something or when someone signs up to your email list, you have to put a very clear message on this confirmation page that says, right, I have just sent you an email. Go into your email and search for this email that's from this name, with this email address, with this subject, and go and find it. And if it is not in your inbox, you need to actually rescue it from the spam or promotions or wherever it's gone and mark it as safe. And if you don't do that, and your first email gets ignored, it's likely the subsequent ones you send will also end up in spam. Then there's other reasons, like it could be a particular set of words in the email. It could be the way the email is formatted. There's no one reason why things go to spam, unfortunately. And it's really vital that you play your part as a good email citizen. You've got to send emails in the right way to the right people at the right time. And doing all of those things will help reduce the chance of things going to spam. But it's not an exact science. All we can do is share, here is what best practice is, here are the things that you should do. And being fair, as long as you don't do anything too crazy, too stupid, then you will probably get most of your emails through most of the time. And one of the hardest things that I ever have to do is to troubleshoot an individual person who's not received an email, because it's almost impossible to do that. The good news is that if one person tells you their email has gone to spam, the chances are that isn't happening to everyone else. So that's the thing you've got to bear in mind, is that Google, Yahoo and Microsoft will give every single person a unique, personalized inbox experience. So if one person ignores you, your emails are going to go to their spam folder. If someone else opens every single email you send, they won't go to spam. So there's lots of different reasons here, and it is very much behavior driven, both on the behavior of your audience who are receiving your emails, but also even more so on the behavior of you, the way you're actually sending them. So there's just so many moving parts here.
Over the last year, things have changed quite a lot, haven't they? So
Yes,
what's
they
changed,
have indeed.
and how does that affect people who are sending out email promotions?
Okay, so first and foremost, I'll gloss on this one. The mailbox providers have become a lot higher expectations around the way they expect marketers to manage their engagement. They're getting a lot less tolerant of you sending emails to your entire list, whether or not they've opened something or not, because too many people are still marketing like it's 2012. And you remember the good old days, you'd build the biggest list you could, and then you just mail the hell out of it until they either buy, they die, or they unsubscribe. And you can't do that anymore. If you keep mailing people that aren't opening your emails, you're going to get slapped and you're going to get put into Google jail. So we have to avoid that. So that's kind of one change that is ever evolving. And the way that we measure that is more difficult, because obviously a couple of years ago, Apple, bless them, brought in their mail privacy protection, which means it's now the norm to not be able to effectively and accurately monitor whether someone is opening your emails or not. So there's a lot of difficulty around that, and there's lots of more advanced tactics you can use, but monitoring the trend of opens is still important. But the main thing that matters more than anything else right now is authentication. And 6 months ago, not enough people had heard of this. And the thing that really scares me, it's the 12th of February today as we record this, and the deadline was the 1st of February to set up authentication as per the new rules that Google and Yahoo published back in October last year. And even on the 1st of February, the thing that really shocked me is more than 50% of all the different businesses and marketers we've checked had still not set this up. And that is really scary, because although the enforcement of these new rules has started quite subtly to start with, then by April this year, so we've got less than 2 months now, if someone's sending bulk emails does not have authentication set up in the way that I'll describe in a minute, those emails are going to get blocked. They just will not get through. End of story. And this is probably the one time ever we've seen where the mailbox providers are actually saying, we are not going to deliver emails. Up until then, they might say, well, we might filter some, we might just not necessarily put them all into inbox, they might go to promotions. But this is the first time that Google and Yahoo have stood shoulder to shoulder, and it's interesting they've actually coordinated this between themselves. So the mailbox providers do definitely talk to each other. And they've said, here are the rules you must follow. If you don't do this, then by the summer of this year, your emails aren't going to get through. Lots of people still aren't taking that into account. And this is why I'm doing my best to share the message with as many people as possible, because otherwise, some people have used the term email Armageddon, which is a little bit drastic, I think. But
you can't trust marketers, Adrian. You can't.
No, totally not.
They're always going to hype everything up, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, we have seen some cases already where people are being affected by what Google and Yahoo have started to do. And I know that there's a new warning. If you go into your spam folder in Google, in Gmail now, you'll see there's a new one that says, this might not be from John Ainsworth because for some reason it's not been authenticated correctly. So they're already starting to warn people that if an email hasn't been signed correctly, they're questioning the validity of it even before they've started filtering them out, and they might be putting them into spam already. So we've got until April the 1st, which is a really funny day, April Fool's Day, to get this working properly. But a lot of people still haven't. So if what I'm talking about here, you're listening to this and you're thinking, hang on, I don't know anything about this, then it's absolutely vital that you take action now. And even if this is something that you think you have done, then the slightly scary thing is that maybe 15 to 20% of the people who've come to me saying, I've done all this, and then we've subsequently checked it, we found that something wasn't actually quite right, even though they thought it was. Or the nightmare scenario is, I paid a guy on Fiverr to do it for me. And then we've subsequently checked it, and they said, well, he did this bit, but this bit he's got wrong. And actually, you're more likely to see your emails going to spam now. So it's one of these cases where it's a one-off thing. That's the good news. Once you set this up, you can forget about it unless you go and make a major change to your email domain or something like that. And then once it's done, then you can just relax knowing that all the emails you send from the platforms you're using right now will be signed and authenticated correctly as you go forward. But it is really vital because it's, the reason that Yahoo and Google have chosen to do this is because they want to make it harder for the spammers and the fakes and the spoofers to get all their garbage through. Unfortunately, that means that us as legitimate marketers, we have a price to pay for that because we've got to go through and jump through all the hoops they've given us.
Gotcha. So what's any misconceptions people have about email authentication then? What's causing any of these issues?
I guess to start with, it just scares most people because particularly if you're a marketer who's creating your courses and marketing it yourself, you don't want to have to worry about all this techie stuff. You just want to create your content and sell it. And you don't want to have to get into all these techno-babble acronyms and DKIMs and DMARCs and things like that. And a lot of people just get scared of it. So part of it is just not knowing what it is and how it works. And then actually making it work properly can be a challenge unless you know exactly what you're doing. Because effectively what we're doing, let's take MailChimp as everyone's favorite, simple email marketing platform. There's plenty of more capable platforms out there, but MailChimp is kind of ubiquitous. If you're sending your newsletter out from MailChimp, then you have to go into MailChimp and you have to say, I want to authenticate my domain. And MailChimp will say, okay, you need to take these particular strings of gobbledygook, and then you need to go and publish that information in your DNS records. And some people look at me blankly and say, well, what's my DNS record? So very simply put, when you sign up and you buy your email domain, you might go to GoDaddy or Namecheap or somewhere like that. Then as part of buying your domain, then you have to publish various bits of information about that domain. And that's called the DNS records, which is the domain name system. And in there, you can publish any kind of text that you want. And the way that domain authentication works is you publish some specific bits of information that MailChimp or whatever other platform you're using will tell you. You copy those, you paste them into the control panel for inside GoDaddy or Namecheap, or some people use Cloudflare, things like that. And then you click the save button there, go back into MailChimp and you say, right, make sure that's correct for me. and MailChimp will either say, yes, it's okay, you're good to go, or they'll say, no, you've made a mistake, go back and do it again. And then once that has been done, then you've done two things. Firstly, you set up what's known as DKIM, which is Domain Keys Identified Mail, which means nothing. And what that's doing is it's adding a digital signature to every single mail that you send out, which then gets compared with the public information that you've put in your DNS records. And as long as all that adds up and matches, then the email will get through. And then the second part of it is what's known as DMARC, and I forget what that even stands for. But what DMARC is it's telling the world what should happen if an email gets received that hasn't been signed by you. So imagine if someone's trying to spoof you, or a spammer's sending stuff on your behalf or something like that. And with DMARC, you can either say do nothing, or you can say put the email into quarantine, which means stick it in the spam, or you can say reject it. So as an example, Google, as of the 1st of February, and Yahoo have said that if an email ever gets received that claims to be from gmail.com or yahoomail.com or whatever it is, and it hasn't come from a Google or a Yahoo server, then throw it in the trash. Not even put it in spam, reject it. Which means that if you're using MailChimp to send an email from fred@gmail.com, it will not get through anymore because of this DMARC rule that Google have published. Now, most people would choose not to do that because it's, DMARC, if you get it wrong, then you can risk losing all the emails, because if you set DMARC to reject and all the emails that you send go out and suddenly something goes wrong with the digital signing, those emails won't land anywhere. So I always recommend firstly set up your digital signing correctly using DKIM, and then set up the DMARC policy to say none, which means that nothing will happen if there's a problem. And then you can optionally look at reports that tell you what's working and what isn't. If everything is working, you can maybe start enforcing quarantine or reject. But unless you're seeing some kind of sign in the report that someone's trying to spoof you, I wouldn't recommend it. I would rather keep things as simple as possible, because the fewer moving parts and the fewer complexities you've got in there, the less there is to go wrong.
Okay, so there's a lot that you just went through there. So I'm going to try and summarize, but there's a bunch that I think I'm going to miss. I'm going to do my best here. So what you want to do, you need to set up DKIM and DMARC. And I looked up DMARC just for thoroughness. It stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting and Conformance. So that helps. So I'm glad we've all got that sorted out. Everything's clear now, right? Okay. So we're going to want to set up DKIM first and then DMARC. Now, could you say again why it was that you need to do it that way around?
So DMARC tells the world what to do if you don't have DKIM set up correctly. So if you set up DMARC first and you haven't got your DKIM working, then it's going to go wrong. But the good news is you can actually do both at the same time, because if the way that MailChimp and the other platforms have evolved now, they will tell you what to do for both DKIM and DMARC at the same time. And then they actually, MailChimp as an example, won't even send the email now unless you've authenticated your emails. So they're kind of forcing you to do it, even though Google and Yahoo aren't insisting that you do just yet. But it's as simple as that. They will help you make sure it's correct.
Gotcha. Okay, so you go into MailChimp, you go to the email authentication section, you probably look up in help or whatever and find where that is. Absolutely. Then they're going to tell you what to do, and they're going to give you some, like you said, gobbledygook as far as most people are concerned, to put into your DNS. You take that, DKIM first, and you go over to your domain, wherever your domain's hosted, GoDaddy or whatever it is, and you paste that into the place where it says to paste it into in your DNS. It's very straightforward doing that. I've done this many times before. It's not complicated to do. It's just a little bit terrifying.
It's just copy and paste.
You're not sure if you're right, So it's going to tell you, here's the paying thing to paste it into, whatever it is. I don't know, a name for server or an A record or whatever it is, but it'll tell you what to do, paste it in there. Yeah. And then you save that, you do it for DKIM, and then you do the same thing for DMARC, and then you should be done. Is this correct? Yeah. Or is there other steps
pretty
to
much
after that?
So that is it as far as MailChimp is concerned. However, this is where it gets a bit more interesting, because you don't only send emails from MailChimp, right? Because every day you're going to send emails on a one-to-one basis as well. You might use Google Workspace, you might use Microsoft 365, you might use GoDaddy's email for your domain. But whatever it is, the medium to long-term requirement will be that every single email gets signed, not just your marketing ones. So people have been overlooking this and just sorting out their marketing emails, which means they're going to have to come back a few months from now and work on the next part. So we're recommending it's worth actually catching everything, because you've got your email marketing platform, you've got your everyday email platform that you send one-to-one emails from. You might have a help desk such as, I don't know, Zendesk or Teamwork or something like that. That has to be set up as well. If you're selling courses, then you might have a membership website that sends emails out direct from the website. So all of those things need to be looked at as well. So, and we'll mention the authentication checker that I've created later on. But the thing to bear in mind is that every single source you've got of emails that are coming from your domain name, they need to be checked to make sure you've done this correctly. So you start with your MailChimp or your Keep or your ActiveCampaign or whatever you're using for marketing. Then you've got your one-on-one email. But there's bound to be something else as well in the mix more often than not. So it's making sure that you don't miss anything.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So we've talked through how you do this for MailChimp at a kind of top level, or MailChimp being, we're substituting that for ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, whatever other, email marketing software you're using. Then secondly, you're going to want to do it for your personal email, whether you're sending it from just Apple Mail, whatever the thing is that's installed on your iPhone or your Mac. And you're going to want to do it for your help desk. And you're going to want to do it for Teachable or Kajabi or whatever else where your course is hosted. And then you're going to want to think, where else is this done? Now, once you've identified this list of places, how do you go about doing that? Are you searching for whatever it might be, let's say Outlook? Do you search for like Outlook DMARC setup or something? Like what's the order to go through here?
So it'll be something like that. So the clarification is DKIM has to be set up for every single individual platform you use, whereas DMARC is one and one only. Having two DMARC records in your domain is an error. So make sure that you don't fall into a trap that some people do, where you actually have two DMARC records. So DKIM, so that's and that's what is typically called domain authentication. That's the bit you need to search for. And just to clarify, it's unlikely to be the software that you're using. So it probably wouldn't be Outlook or Apple Mail or something like that. It'll be the system that you're connecting to on the back end, which might be, it could be Google Workspace, it could be Microsoft 365, it could be, GoDaddy email from your ISP, and that's where you need to find those settings. So it's a bit more Googling and searching, because unfortunately, as we've learned the hard way, because we've set this up for hundreds of people now, every single darned platform has different settings and different, and finding that can be a slight challenge. But normally, if you just search for your platform name like Google Workspace DKIM or Microsoft 365 DKIM or whatever, and that should link you to their help page or even their control panel page where you set it up. And again, it's the same thing. You'll say, I want to set this up. They will tell you what to publish, and then that goes into your DNS the same way you did for MailChimp or whatever else.
Perfect. Okay. And so Google Workspace, I'm guessing, the new name for Google Apps or whatever it was called before.
Yeah, so it's Google Apps,
every
then
2
it
or 3
became G
years,
Suite,
right?
and then then it became Google Workspace. So that's exactly it. So so basically,
So
if you're using Gmail and it's a business domain, that's Google Workspace.
Yeah, got it. Okay, cool. Okay, so forget what I said earlier, the bit about the Apple Mail or the Outlook. That's not the place. It's the Google Workspace or Microsoft 365 that you're going into to find and change the settings in there, and it's only DKIM, not DMARC. Got it.
Yes, as long as you've
it's
done
crucial
DMARC
that you
once.
don't do DMARC.
Yes.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is very thorough. I like this a lot. Okay, so is there anything else that people need to be setting up with their authentication? There's a tool that you've got, right, that can check whether they've set this up right.
Yes.
Where does that come in the order
indeed
of things?
Okay, so if you know it's not set up, there's no point checking. I would at least wait until you've had a go at setting things up before you check it. But then the way the authentication checker works is very simple, and we'll be sharing a link that'll be somewhere underneath this recording somewhere. And you go to that, it'll ask you to register, you'll receive a login link, and you sign in, and then there's a manual check option. You click the manual check button, and it will say send an email to this string of letters and numbers that becomes an email address. So you go back to whether it's your MailChimp or your Google Workspace or whatever, and you just send any random email to that address. And the only thing you have to make sure is don't send it as a test email, because sometimes that goes in a weird and wonderful way. It needs to look like a real email that you're sending from MailChimp as a broadcast or a campaign or whatever they call it. Send it to that address. Wait a maybe 10, 20 seconds worst case, and then you'll see a result on the authentication checker screen, and there'll be 3 different results. It'd be like traffic lights. They can either be green, they can be yellow, or they can be red. And ideally you want 3 green things. And if you've got any non-green things, then yellow is okay. You've met the minimum requirements for this time round, but you could maybe tighten things up. But if there's any red in there, then you need to get that fixed. There's a third authentication method that I haven't mentioned, and I'll just very briefly gloss over it now, and that's called SPF. And it's nothing to do with sunscreen. That stands for Sender Policy Framework. And that's another form of authenticating your email platform. And SPF is a bit like DMARC. You only have one SPF record, and it says, here are all the mail platforms that I trust in one place to send emails on my behalf. So if you haven't got the email platform that you're using mentioned in that SPF, then it will tell you that you need to fix that as well. But just to be very clear, that is not a requirement for the February the 1st rules that Google and Yahoo have brought in. So everyone wants 3 green check marks ideally, of course, but we're not really pushing SPF too hard at the moment because that's something that can be fixed later and it's an extra piece of work. So that's just there for completeness. But as long as you're getting the green check mark for DKIM and for DMARC on the authentication checker, then that's fine. And the thing you do, once you've done it for MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or whatever you're using, you need to click the send manual test email again inside the authentication checker, and then go back and do the same thing from your Google Workspace or your Microsoft 365. And what you'll see is the more different platforms you send your emails from inside the authentication checker, then there'll be more than one result. So it'll show for each platform, it'll tell you whether you're good to go or not. So you might find that DKIM is set up correctly for MailChimp, but not for Google Workspace, as an example. So again, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to make sure that every platform that you're sending from is being authenticated correctly.
Perfect. All right, cool. So the link for that tool is going to be in the show notes for this episode. So wherever you're listening to this, click in the link for the show notes. So if you're watching this on YouTube, go into the comments or the video description. If you're listening on Overcast or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, go into the podcast description, and there's going to be a link in there that's going to take you through to that email authentication tool. You can access that for free, and then you can run these tests after you've done everything that Adrian's just told you to do from the episode. Go back, listen again, set it all up, use the tool, and then you can know for sure if this is actually set up right. Make sure you do this, because this is a really big deal. Email, we talk about that a lot on this show, is the most powerful tool for actually making sales for your courses. And so you've got to have this stuff set up. I mean, you absolutely must. It's February now. I don't know when you're hearing this episode exactly, when this is going out, but it must be set up by the 1st of April. We've just heard that from Adrian. So make absolutely sure you do this. Don't put this one off. I want to just change angle a little bit. What key metrics are there that course creators should be looking at to maintain a good sending reputation?
So I mentioned earlier on, the real vital sign that you look at your email list these days is all about engagement. What percentage of the people you're emailing are opening your emails? And if you're not monitoring that, then you're more likely than ever to be seeing the emails filtered in the future, because reputation, which is probably the key thing in email deliverability, depends very much on the behavior of you and your audience, as I mentioned earlier on. So what we're saying here is to maintain the best possible reputation that you've got, you need to be sending your emails in a way that's going to get Google and Microsoft and Yahoo to actually like you. And they will like you if you send emails that get opened by people and don't send emails that won't get opened. So obviously content plays a part in that. If you're sending a load of junk out, people will ignore you. But going beyond that, we want to try and stack the odds in our favour. And statistically speaking, who is most likely to open the emails you send them? It's going to be the ones that recently opened something from you. If I've been mailing someone for the last 6 months and they've ignored every single mail I've sent, then I'm going to remind everyone of what Einstein's definition of insanity is, which is doing the same thing and getting different results and expecting different results. If people aren't opening your emails, then I will unapologetically throw in a reference to the Frozen movie in here and say you've got to listen to the song and let it go. There is no point mailing what I call the liabilities on your email list. The people that are not opening your emails will be hurting your reputation every time you mail them, every time they don't open something. So what we're looking at here, ideally, is we want to send as many emails as possible to the people that have opened something from you in the last, let's say, 30 days. Sometimes it's even less than that. The open rate itself doesn't matter that much because we know that Apple have made all these changes, and as part of that, you can't necessarily trust whether or not one individual person has opened your emails anymore. But what we do know is that a fake open report that Apple will trigger only happens if the email hasn't gone into the spam folder. So even though we don't know the email's been opened for sure, we know it's been delivered and there's a chance it will still get seen. So what we're saying is as soon as we realise that we're getting the sign that someone hasn't opened emails for a while, we must stop sending emails at that point. So that's the most important metric, is just what proportion of people are opening your emails. And the other thing that I'll go into just briefly to kind of follow up on that, because we all know that people aren't going to buy your products by opening your emails. They'll buy them if they click on the buy now link or if they click on whatever you're offering them in the call to action on your email. So monitoring clicks is really important. And the metric I use to get people into good habits there, rather than looking at the people who have clicked, let's look at the people that haven't. Because statistically, the people that are most likely to hit the spam button on your emails, which will result in damaging your reputation, are actually the people that have never clicked a single link in your email. So let's imagine they sign up for your freebie, they receive the email. If you can't get someone to even click that first link in that email with your freebie, the chances of them ever buying something from you are pretty much zero. So my recommendation is to always very quickly eliminate those people from your email list that have never clicked anything, because unfortunately they're virtually worthless. So that never clicked index, as I call it, the NCI, that needs to be as low as possible to 0%. And I've got some very well-known marketers where I went in and I analysed this for them, and the never clicked index was north of 80%. And I had to give them the very bad news that I'm afraid that your email list is probably only worth about 20% of what you thought it was, which is why this whole list size and engagement and open rates, they're all vanity metrics. The only thing that matters is how many people are clicking the links in your emails and how much money are you making from it. It doesn't matter if you've got a list of 500,000 people and an open rate of 60%. If they're not clicking, it's pointless. So, that never clicked index is vital because, being completely honest, until recently, even my own email list had too many people on it that hadn't clicked stuff. So that's something we've had to do something about. Makes a huge difference.
On another topic, why do you think it is that people believe that email is dead? Why does that always get said, like again and again? Like, I kind of forget about it sometimes, right? Somebody said this to me the other day. I hadn't heard it in a while. And then someone said, oh, so what do you say to people who say that email's dead? I was like, oh, are people still saying that? And I was like, so it made me think, I wonder, I guess maybe some people still are. I don't know. I'm not sure. Do you think people are still saying that? And if so, like, why?
It's a while since I've heard it. I think the last time I heard it was when Facebook Messenger bots were the big thing, and there were lots of people selling bot courses. And of course they'd say that email was dead, the same way that people doing social media marketing training or text message marketing training, it's in other people's interest to say that email is dead. And I think also a lot of people who do maybe, as my friend and business partner Evan, who runs Email Smart with me, he's got a phrase. He talks about people taking a dive headfirst into Lake Stupid. And if someone has done a dumb thing recently and got banned by Google because they managed to get, lots of spam complaints or something, of course they'll think that email's dead because it's not working for them. But as long as you are sensible and you follow common sense and you send your emails that have good quality content to the people that want to hear from you and that are opening your emails, then email is not dead. Because let's face it, if you've got a massive following on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, the number of people I know personally who in the last 6 or 12 months have been thrown off the platform for reasons they didn't even know about. Because they have got no control over the algorithms. Effectively, you are renting an audience on social media. Whereas with email, you are owning the audience. It's your email list. It's your email addresses for you to do as you wish, as long as you are doing it within the terms of consent that they gave you. And sure, we have to do things Google's way, otherwise they are going to get upset with us. But as long as you follow some very simple, very common sense rules, then email is absolutely not dead. And I'm working with clients that are making 8 figures by selling through email. And they have not necessarily a massive email list. Obviously, it's going to be significant, but you don't need a massive email list and you don't need massive open rates to be able to do well with email. As long as you're following the basic rules and you're creating good content that people want to receive and you're mailing it to them at the right time, it doesn't even matter how often you do it. I've got some clients that mail twice a day, every single day of the week, and those emails get through. They have a high open rate. They make great sales. So as long as you're sending stuff out that people want to receive, then email is far from dead. It's very much alive and kicking, and it's keeping Evan and me and the rest of our team very gainfully occupied. And of course, social media and everything else is okay. I'm not going to ever, kind of play down any other channel of marketing, because at the end of the day, multi-channel is best. You want to, don't have all your eggs in one basket. You want to use social media, email, maybe text message. Direct mail. People still don't do it enough because we have to accept that sometimes email can't get through. It's not perfect because nothing is perfect. So it's worth trying different strategies. But I'd say 99 times out of 100, email is still the most cost-effective and profitable marketing channel you can use if you're doing it right.
Okay, so a reminder, the email authentication tool is going to be in the link. The link to that, is going to be in the description or the show notes or the YouTube description, whatever it is, wherever you're watching this. To back up everything you just said about the using email, the way that we approach it very much is we've got a lot of clients who've got very big YouTube audiences or Instagram audiences, this kind of thing, and it's that's where you build the audience, and then you get them onto your email list, and then when they're on your email list, that's where they're more likely to buy by far. So much more likely to buy from a promotion direct via email than direct via, doing a YouTube live or an announcement video or something like that. It's unreal. And people it boggles my mind how little people realize this, because it's I've got all these clients who start working with us who might have 1 million subscribers on YouTube and they don't send email promotions. And I'm like, they're not getting people onto their email list. They're not doing, never mind any of the stuff you're talking about with email deliverability. They're not even sending emails, It's just oh my God, you're just missing 80% of the revenue. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, yes. It upsets me. That's why I do this podcast. Let everybody know about it. Okay, so go check out the email authentication tool completely for free. Link will be below this, wherever you're listening to this. Where else can people find you if they want to learn some more of your wisdom? By doing the authentication checker, you'll end up on the Email Smart email list anyway, where we send out lots of hints and tips, things like that. There's the emailsmart.com website, which is effectively there are some information articles on there, blog posts, articles, and so on. And again, you can sign up to our email list. I can be contacted directly through Facebook as well, just facebook.com/adrian.savage. Always welcome to accept friend requests, and I can be DM'd through that platform. And we can be emailed through our website as well, so lots of different ways to get in touch. But I'd say that for the time being, at least, then starting with the authentication checker is the best thing to do if you haven't done that already, because you need to do it. Perfect. If you've enjoyed this and you found this interview useful and you want to get future episodes, subscribe wherever you have been listening. And if you want to hear more from Adrian, we actually had an episode with Adrian a while ago. It was back in June 2022. Where he covered more about staying out of the spam folder, so you can go and listen to that one as well if you'd like. Thanks so much for coming on, Adrian. Really appreciate your time today.
It's a pleasure, John. Thank you so much for the invitation.